Hello, my dear students. Welcome you all to Sri Jayendra Rank Zone classes. I am your mentor and your friend for the subject biology, and I will be taking the zoology part, that is animal science. My dear students, in the last lecture, we discussed about the cranial nerve. Today, we are going to start with the origin of cranial nerves from the cranial fossa. The given picture is basically a cranial fossa or a part of the cranium, that is skull, having different openings. These openings are known as what? Foramens or foramina. So the cribiform foramina is basically a origin and a passage for the first olfactory nerve, that is cranial nerve. Basically, these are the passages. These foramens are the passages, right? To cribiform foramina, it is a known as olfactory nerve. The passage is cribiform foramina. Optic canal is the passage for second cranial nerve, that is optic nerve. Superior orbital fissure. Superior orbital fissure is the passage for third cranial nerve, fourth cranial nerve, fifth cranial nerve, and sixth cranial nerve. Okay. You can remember the names of the cranial nerve like this: O cube, T square, AFA, GVSH. Okay. O cube, T square, AFA, GVSH. The first O is olfactory. The second O is optic. The third O is oculomotor. Oculomotor. Okay. Then A for abducens. Sorry, T square. T square. The first T is trochlear. Trochlear. Okay. Then the second T is trigeminal. Then O cube T square. A for abducens. F for facial. A for auditory, the eighth cranial nerve. Then G for glossopharyngeal, the ninth cranial nerve. Then V for vagus. Then S for spinal accessory, and H for hypoglossal. Okay, so O Q T square AFA GVSH. Okay, so cribiform foramina, for it is the passage for first cranial nerve, optic canal for second cranial nerve, superior orbital fissure from third to sixth cranial nerves, foramen rotundum, very important, foramen rotundum. Foramen rotundum basically it receives the second branch, that is maxillary nerve, which is a branch for of trigeminal nerve. Okay, then foramen ovale, it receives the mandibular nerve. Okay, that is the third branch of trigeminal nerve. In the previous slide, you can see that the trigeminal nerve is having ophthalmic nerve, maxillary nerve, and mandibular nerve. Okay, these are the branches. So the second branch is passed through maxillary nerve, and the third branch is passed through the foramen ovale. Second branch of the trigeminal nerve is passed through foramen rotundum. Main are foramen rotundum, foramen ovale. Okay. Then internal acoustic meatus, it is the passage for seventh cranial nerve, that is facial nerve, and eighth cranial nerve, that is vestibulocochlear nerve or auditory nerve. Jugular foramen is the passage for the ninth cranial nerve, glossopharyngeal nerve, 10th cranial nerve, vagus nerve, 11th cranial nerve, spinal accessory nerve. And hypoglossal canal is for the 12th cranial nerve. So these are the passages of cranial nerves. Okay. In the previous slide, I have given all the, you can see here the origin. Okay. Now, starting from the first cranial nerve, that is the olfactory, the functions are already been understood. Sensory. Okay, the main functions are sensory. Okay, so sensory means it carry only sensory nerve fiber, that is afferent or sensory nerve fibers. Okay, red is given for efferent. Okay, I have already told you all these cranial nerves. I have already made you understand that what or which cranial nerve performs which function. Okay, then the first cranial nerve carries the sensory fibers for smell. Okay, it is represented by green. The second cranial nerve, it is also sensory. It carries the impulse for vision. Okay, then third cranial nerve, it is having efferent nerve fibers, means the motor. So oculomotor is motor. It supplies to ciliary muscles, sphincter, pupillae, all extrinsic muscles of eye except those listed for cranial nerve 4 and cranial nerve 6. So the muscles of the eye, like lateral rectus, medial rectus, superior oblique, inferior oblique, okay, extrinsic muscles, they are supplied by, ciliary muscles are supplied by the oculomotor nerve, the third cranial nerve, okay, except the supply which is done by fourth cranial nerve and sixth cranial nerve. Okay, so it is motor in function. Then, so this is the cranial nerve fourth, that is trochlear, which supplies superior oblique muscle of eye. Okay, fifth cranial nerve, it is sensory. It supplies to face, different sinuses of the face, maxillary sinuses, and the teeth. Okay. Sixth cranial nerve, it is also motor. Okay. It supplies to lateral rectus muscle of eye. So the fourth cranial nerve, it supplies to the superior oblique muscle of the eye. It is motor in function. The fifth cranial nerve, the trigeminal nerve, it has sensory root. Okay, it has sensory root. Okay, so the sensory function to face, sinuses, and teeth. Sixth cranial nerve or the absent nerve, it is motor in function. It supplies to the lateral rectus muscle of the eye. Then there is another root of fifth cranial nerve, which is the motor root. Okay, so basically talking that trigeminal, it basically is a mixed nerve having sensory root as well as motor roots. Okay, so the motor root supplies to the muscles of mastication. So the motor root of trigeminal nerve supplies to the muscles of mastication. Okay, it is mixed. Okay, now after the fifth cranial nerve, sixth is done. Now seventh cranial nerve. Okay, the seventh cranial nerve, this is the cranial nerve 7, which is the facial nerve. Okay, it is an intermediate nerve. It is motor in function, supplies to submandibular, sublingual, and lacrimal glands. Submandibular, sublingual, and lacrimal glands. It is the motor functions are to sublingual, submandibular, and lacrimal glands, and sensory functions are taste to the anterior two-third of the tongue and soft palate. Okay, so the facial nerve, that is the seventh cranial nerve. Okay, it is an intermediate nerve. It is a mixed nerve having both motor and sensory roots. The motor part supplies to submandibular, sublingual, and lacrimal glands, and the sensory part supplies to the taste of to the anterior two-third of the tongue and the soft palate. Okay, so this is the seventh cranial nerve or the facial nerve. Now, the eighth cranial nerve is known as what? Auditory nerve or vestibulocochlear nerve. Okay, so it is having two functions. One is the vestibular nerve and another is the cochlear nerve. The vestibular nerve is sensory and cochlear nerve is also sensory. Vestibular nerve, it helps in the orientation and motion, mean balance, equilibrium of the body, and the cochlear nerve, it helps in hearing. So cranial nerve 8 is vestibulocochlear nerve or the auditory nerve. Facial nerve is the seventh cranial nerve. Then comes the ninth cranial nerve, which is glossopharyngeal. It is mixed in function, both motor and sensory. Motor part supplies to stylopharyngeus, means the pharynx part, muscles of the pharynx, and parotid gland. The glossopharyngeal nerve or the ninth cranial nerve, the motor part of the glossopharyngeal nerve or the ninth cranial nerve supplies to the parotid gland and the muscles of pharynx. Okay, stylopharynx. Then the sensory functions to they are taste, especially to the posterior one third part of the tongue. So anterior two third is supplied facial nerve, by facial nerve, and posterior one third for by glossopharyngeal, nerve. Okay. In the 10th cranial nerve, it is also mixed in function. Motor supplies to the palate, pharynx, larynx, trachea, bronchial tree, heart, GI tract to the left colic flexure. Sensory part supplies to pharynx, larynx, reflex sensory forms from tracheobronchial tree, lungs, heart, GI tract to the left colic flexure. Okay. So motor part and the sensory part of the vagus nerve. Okay, it is a mixed nerve. It is the 10th cranial nerve. Okay. It supplies, especially it controls the, or it is having the cardiac center. It controls the rate and the rhythm of the heartbeat. Then comes the 11th cranial nerve of the spinal accessory. It is motor in function, supplies to sternocleidomastoid muscle and trapezius muscles. Okay, trapezius muscle, they are basically related to scapula. Okay, then the 12th cranial nerve, hypoglossal, which is motor in function. It supplies to all intrinsic and extrinsic muscles of tongue, excluding palatoglossus, a palatine muscle. Okay, so these are different cranial nerves and their respective functions. Okay, I hope you have actually to learn all these functions. Okay, again and again. Okay, so please write it and then learn it, then again write it and then again learn it. Now moving to, this is the 3D model of brain. Okay, just I have posted a picture to make you more clear. The cerebrum, cerebellum, medulla, pons, okay, peduncles, okay, the midbrain. Now I'm going to talk about the spinal nerves. Spinal nerves, they arise from gray matter of spinal cord. There are 31 pairs of spinal nerves in man and 37 pairs in rabbit. So spinal nerves, they arise from gray matter of spinal cord. There are 31 pairs of spinal nerves in man and 37 pairs of spinal nerves in rabbit. All spinal nerves are mixed. The spinal nerves in man are divided into 5 groups. Okay. All spinal nerves, they are mixed. The spinal nerves are divided into 5 groups. Now, the first group is cervical. Okay. Having 8 pairs of cervical nerves. Okay. Or the spinal nerves. So 8 pair of cervical spinal nerves, they supply in the neck region. 12 pairs of thoracic nerves supply in the thoracic region. 5 pairs of lumbar supplies to the upper part of the abdomen. 5 pairs of the sacral supplies to the lower part of the abdomen, and 1 pair of coccygeal, okay, represent the tail nerves. Okay, total are 31 pairs. So it can be written as C8, T12, L5, S5, and C1. Okay. Now, this is the C1 spinal nerve. This is the cervical plexus and brachial plexus. These are the enlargements. C1 cervical vertebrae. This is the spinal cord. This is the phrenic nerve supplies to the diaphragm. T1 thoracic nerve, axillary nerve, musculocutaneous nerve, median nerve, radial nerve, ulnar nerve, subcostal nerves, iliohypogastric and iliolingual inguinal nerves, lateral cutaneous nerve of the thigh, pudendal nerve, sciatic nerve. Obturator nerve, coccyx is the coccyx part, phylum terminale, sacral plexus, lumbar plexus, intercostal nerves. This is the L1 lumbar vertebrae, and this is the femoral nerve. Okay, so all these nerves you don't have to remember the names, just I am giving you a glimpse. Okay, that is why I am just reading out the names. Okay, the number of spinal nerves in frog is 10 pair. In some frog like Rana tigrina, 10th pair may reduced or absent. Generally, the number of spinal nerves in frog 10 pairs. In some frog like Rana tigrina, the 10th pair may reduced or absent. The first pair of spinal nerves in frog is hypoglossal. The first pair of spinal nerve in frog is hypoglossal. The last pair of cranial nerves of mammals has the same name. Okay, as hypoglossal in case of mammals, it is a cranial nerve. The first pair of spinal nerves in frog is hypoglossal, which is having the same name as the last pair of the cranial nerves. Brachial plexus is formed between second and third spinal nerves in frog. Brachial plexus is formed basically between the second and third spinal nerves in frog. Sciatic plexus is formed between 7, 8, and 9 spinal nerves in frog. Glands of Swammerdam are calcareous glands found at the places of emerging of spinal nerves in frog. The glands of Swammerdam, they are present at the place of emerging of spinal nerves of frog. Okay, at the region of 7th, 8th, and 9th spinal nerves in frog, sciatic plexus is present. The spinal nerve formula can be written as C8, T12, L5, S5, CO1. Spinal nerves exit by intervertebral foramen. Spinal nerves exit through intervertebral foramen. Okay. Now, roots of spinal nerve. Each spinal nerve arises from the spinal cord by two roots. Is supplied by two roots. The dorsal, which is afferent or sensory or posterior. It is the root which is in continuation of dorsal horn and is formed of gray matter. It presents a ganglionic swelling in middle called dorsal root ganglion. These transmit sensory nerve impulses from the sense organs to spinal cord, such as for touch, pain, and temperature. They activate involuntary reflexes. So dorsal, also known as afferent or sensory or posterior root, is a continuation of dorsal horn and is formed of gray matter. It presents as a present as a ganglionic swelling in the middle called dorsal root ganglion. They transmit sensory nerve impulses from the sense organs to spinal cord, like touch, pain, and temperature. They activate involuntary reflexes. Now ventral, like efferent or motor root, are continuation of ventral horn and is also formed of gray matter. No ganglion are present. It is formed of only one. It is formed of only efferent nerve fibers. They transmit motor nerve impulses to the effector organs, glands, and muscles. Each spinal nerve has four branches. So this is the dorsal root and ventral root. Okay. The dorsal root is afferent or sensory or also known as posterior. Okay. And the ventral root is efferent or motor. Okay. Both are formed from gray matter only. Okay. In dorsal root, ganglionic swellings are present. In ventral root, no ganglions are present. Okay. Now come the ramus dorsalis. It supplies to skin and muscles of the dorsal side. Ramus dorsalis, it supplies to the skin and muscles of dorsal side. Ramus ventrialis supplies to the skin and muscles of ventral and lateral sides and also to the upper and lower limbs. Ventral root of certain spinal nerve form five nerve plexi on either side: cervical, thoracic, lumbar, sacral, and caudal. Okay, these are the five nerve plexus: cervical, thoracic, lumbar, sacral, and caudal. Okay. The cervical plexus supplies to neck and diaphragm. It extends from C1 to C4. C1 to C4. It supplies to neck and diaphragm. Okay. Then brachial plexus. It extends from C5 to T1. It supplies to upper limbs and shoulder. Okay. Then comes lumbar plexus. It extends from L1 to L4. It supplies to lower abdomen and legs and pelvis. Okay, so cervical plexus, brachial plexus, lumbar plexus. Then comes sacral plexus. I'll write down here. Supplies to hip joint and pelvis. Extends from L4 to S4. Sometimes it is given S3. Okay. Then coccygeal plexus or coccyx plexus supplies to pelvis S4 to C1. Supplies to pelvis. So these are the basically the ventral rami. The ventral rami forms five nerve plexus. Okay, the dorsal rami and ventral rami they both are present. Okay. Now ramus dorsalis or dorsal rami supplies to skin and muscles of dorsal side. Okay. Ramus ventralis or ventral rami it is been divided into all these plexus. Ramus communicans. Ramus communicans basically it joins sympathetic ganglion of autonomic nervous system. The ramus communicans it basically includes the white ramus and the gray ramus. Okay, it includes white ramus and gray ramus. Okay, and it joins sympathetic ganglion of autonomic nervous system. Meningeal branch it supplies to vertebrae, vertebral blood vessels. Meningeal branch supplies to vertebrae and vertebral blood vessels. Okay. Now comes the autonomic nervous system, ANS. So you learn about the central nervous system. Now we are going to talk about the autonomic nervous system. Okay. So basically the neuron or the cell body of neurons. So the peripheral part of the neuron is basically in the autonomic nervous system. Okay. Also known as somatic nervous system. Okay. There is a autonomic ganglia like this. It helps to control the involuntary muscles. So the somatic nervous system, it basically connects ANS to autonomic nervous system to control skeletal muscles. And the autonomic ganglion, it connects and coordinates the involuntary muscles actions and glands. Okay, so this part is known as what? Postganglionic fibers, and this part preganglionic fibers. ठीक है? Now, the autonomic nervous system was discovered by Langley. Autonomic nervous system automatically regulates the activities of smooth muscles, cardiac muscles, and glands. So it basically helps to regulate the activities of smooth muscles, cardiac muscles, and glands. This coordination is called involuntary. Autonomic nervous system usually operates without conscious control. Autonomic nervous system is entirely motor. Entirely motor. All autonomic axons are efferent fibers. All autonomic organs are efferent fibers. Autonomic nervous system is regulated by the centers in brain like cerebral cortex, hypothalamus, and medulla oblongata. Okay. Autonomic axons are efferent fibers. Autonomic nervous system is regulated by the centers in brain like cerebral cortex, hypothalamus, and medulla oblongata. Autonomic fibers release chemical transmitters at synapse. On the basis of neurotransmitter produced, these fibers may be classified as cholinergic or adrenergic. Cholinergic fibers release acetylcholine. Adrenergic fibers produce norepinephrine or adrenaline. It is called sympathetin. Okay. So the autonomic nervous system works in this way. Okay. When it was discovered by Langley, the autonomic nervous system automatically regulates the activities of smooth muscles and glands specifically. Okay. This coordination is involuntary. Autonomic nervous system usually operates without conscious control. Autonomic nervous system is entirely motor. All autonomic axons are efferent fibers except, okay, there are some. Autonomic nervous system is regulated by centers in brain like cerebral cortex, hypothalamus, and medulla oblongata. Autonomic fibers release chemical neurotransmitter at synapse. On the basis of transmitter produced, these fibers may be classified as cholinergic or adrenergic. Cholinergic fibers release acetylcholine. Adrenergic fibers produce norepinephrine and is called sympathetin. Nature of autonomic control. The autonomic nervous system regulates and coordinates such vital involuntary activities, like heartbeat, breathing, maintenance and composition of body fluids, homeostasis, and the body temperature, gut peristalsis, secretion of glands. Autonomic nervous system consists of two divisions. Nature of autonomic control. The autonomic nervous system regulates and coordinates such vital involuntary activities like heartbeat, breathing, maintenance and composition of body fluids, mean to maintain the internal constant environment, that is homeostasis, and body temperature, gut peristalsis of and secretion of glands. It consists of sympathetic autonomic nervous system, which is thoracolumbar outflow. Thoracolumbar outflow, it basically is having all thoracic and plus 3 lumbar. Okay. So sympathetic autonomic nervous system, it is also known as thoracolumbar outflow. It consists of thoracolumbar outflow in which 3 are lumbar and all are thoracic. They include preganglionic nerves which are small and postganglionic nerves which are long. Preganglionic nerves secrete acetylcholine, postganglionic nerves secrete sympathetin or norepinephrine. Preganglionic nerves secrete acetylcholine and postganglionic nerves secrete sympathetin or acetyl or norepinephrine. It shows sympathy, general increase in the function, expenditure of energy takes place, it increases defense system of body against adverse conditions, it is active in stress condition, pain, fear and anger. Okay. The preganglionic nerve secrete acetylcholine. Okay, postganglionic nerve secrete sympathetin or norepinephrine. It shows sympathy, generally increases in the function, expenditure of energy takes place, it increases defense system of body against adverse condition. Parasympathetic nervous system. Parasympathetic nervous system is craniosacral outflow and sympathetic was thoracolumbar outflow. The craniosacral outflow, it includes cranial nerves like third, seventh, ninth, and tenth, and sacral nerves like second, third, fourth. Okay. So the craniosacral outflow or parasympathetic autonomic nervous system, it includes cranial nerves like third, seventh, ninth, and tenth, and sacral it includes second, third, fourth nerves, preganglionic nerves, and postganglionic nerves. Here, preganglionic nerves are long and postganglionic nerves are small. In sympathetic, preganglionic were small and postganglionic were large. Okay, it secretes acetylcholine only, but in sympathetic, it secretes acetylcholine as well as noradrenaline or norepinephrine. Okay, the preganglionic part secretes acetylcholine and postganglionic part secretes sympathetic or norepinephrine. It provides relaxation, comfort, pleasure at the time of rest. Restoration and conservation of energy takes place through this system. Collateral ganglia present in sympathetic nervous system. There is a presence of collateral ganglia which are present in the sympathetic nervous system. Horner syndrome results from the damage of sympathetic trunk of one side. If one side of the sympathetic trunk is disturbed, destroyed, damaged, then it causes Horner syndrome. A patient of Horner syndrome exhibit lack of sweating on affected side, sunken eyes, and constricted pupil. A patient suffering from Horner syndrome exhibits lack of sweating on affected side, sunken eyes, and constricted pupil. Okay. Now the functions of sympathetic and parasympathetic and the differences, remark differences, I will tell you in the next lecture, coming lecture. Till then, please go through the previous lectures to have a better connect. We will meet in the next turn with the functions of autonomic nervous system, including differences of parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system. Till then, bye bye, take care, stay safe, stay healthy.